Just want to remind you guys this episode is presented by PrizePicks. Guys, be sure to hop over to prizepicks.com today. And when you do that, use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you pay your first $5 lineup.
What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Derek and Cody with you. And guys, the curse continues and the losing streak continues in Jacksonville. It has now been a full decade since the Indianapolis Colts have won in Jacksonville, and they will now have to wait till 2025 for another chance at it. The Indianapolis Colts lose in a back-and-forth bout in the final score of 34-37. Guys, there's a lot to digest here, and we're going to go ahead and break down all of it. Cody, I know we want to start out with the hot point, and I think we should just save that towards the ending a little bit, because obviously people are going to want to hear it. So we'll just save that for the ending bit. But before we get into like the nitty-gritty details of everything, I mean, this sucks, dude. I mean, this sucks because like we had so many situations today where Indianapolis could have won this game, and yet here we are sitting at another loss, and Jacksonville winning their first game of the season. And again, Jacksonville having looking like the greatest team that's ever played the game of football off of Indianapolis. I mean, what are you feeling right now after this loss?
I'm not surprised, Derek. This team soft again. It continues to just win in Jacksonville. Forgets how to play. Looks like a JV team. I mean, this is why we never pick the Colts to win in Jacksonville, because they can look great one week, and then when they go down to Jacksonville, it's like I could yell and scream and all that stuff. Internally, you want to do that. You just want to say this whole organization has just been a joke the last 10 years in Jacksonville, and that's true. But Derek, to maybe lighten the mood a little bit, I think it's like the Space Jam, whenever like the Monstars, they have the ball, the basketball, and it's like they have their power and then they don't. It's like they're them before they touch the magic, get the magic stuff and all that, everything. It's like they look like that every single time they play Jacksonville for whatever reason. Players who have played well all season just look like absolutely lost out there, look like they've never touched a field. It's just wild, man, to me, how this continues to be a thing. And I mean, it's just this losing mindset, which is why the Indianapolis Colts have won how many playoff games in the last 5 years? I mean, this is exactly why, Derek. The team, whenever it matters in the critical moments in games that they need to win, unfortunately, this has been the trend for the last number of years, is this team just can't get it done when it matters in these moments. They can't break the curse. It's like you said, it's on 10 years now. Got to hear it a whole nother year, which is just so frustrating. Colts continue when it matters to just pee down their own leg, and not surprised, but it is discouraging. It's just like, man, this organization makes me depressed, man. Like, it just makes me not even want to root for that sometimes. That's how frustrating it is. It's just like, I can't even pick them. I can't even get excited for when they play down here anymore. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah. It sucks that when you have to look as a fan base and then you sit there and say, we fully expect this team to lose when they play a certain team in a certain place. Like, it sucks. I mean, it's always a part of the game. Like, obviously a lot of teams have, the combined records or recent records. Like, obviously teams have favorites towards other teams. Teams go on win streaks or have dominant stretches against teams. But I mean, this is something different. I mean, not very often does an NFL team win 10 straight games in a row against a team in the same exact place every single year. It's not common. And here we are at the point where we as Colts fans, we just accept it. We say it from the very beginning. When the schedule comes out, we sit there and immediately say on stream, loss right there at Jacksonville. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about anything else. That's the first game you look at and you say, loss, because we know it's going to happen. And it happened again. Because, again, when you gave yourself a chance, one unit couldn't get it done. And that was the defense. So we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. Well, let's talk.
I got to say, Derek, like, I know we point out the defense. Let's just point out the team. This team is I'm going to be honest. I think this is the worst team when it comes to complimentary football. This team blows when it comes to complimentary football. They are terrible at complimentary football. It's either the offense looks like crap and the defense is playing well, or the defense looks like crap and the offense. And to me, Derek, again, I like Shane Steichen, but this is a very poorly coached football team. I mean, we can just call it what it is. This is what it's been the case every single game. It's like this team cannot put teams away. It almost like clutches defeat out of the jaws of victory a lot of times, right? There's a lot of blame to go around, right? Obviously, it always falls on, the people who assembled the team, the GM, the head coach. But Derek, it's in everywhere. It's an organizational problem right now. That's kind of where I stand with it. It's just like this team just continues to not play complimentary football again. And again, I know, like, this was a very banged up Colts team, but Derek, this is an 0-4 Jacksonville team coming into this game. Like, they didn't win a single game all year. So I don't know, man. Like,
it's because, like, for Jacksonville, some of the things that they were terrible at all year, they weren't terrible in this game. Like, I mean, some of the stats offensively, I mean, they were dead last in a couple different stats this year offensively. And yet, again, Jacksonville had a career day from Trevor Lawrence. Again, it just feels like every year we keep hearing that career day from Trevor Lawrence, because every time he plays us, we get torched. We get absolutely torched. Now, I want to move off of the defense for a second, because we're going to have a long thing with that. Let's talk about this with Joe Flacco. So let's talk about Joe Flacco for a second. Joe Flacco had to come in for AR. It was a game time decision, but they decided to go with Flacco. 33 of 44, 360 yards, 3 touchdowns, sacked 3 times, had a QB rating of 121, did have the fumble at the end of the first half that gave Jacksonville the lead back at the end of the first half. I mean, Cody, obviously there was some bad when it came to Joe Flacco, but obviously from all intents and purposes, I thought that this was a really good game from Joe Flacco. My only issue with it mainly was, why did it take till the fourth quarter for us to finally start, like, throwing the ball, 30, 40, 50 yards down the field? Like you and I talked about that before we started. Like, obviously Jacksonville probably, but you know what? It's weird too, because I can't even say that, because if you're Jacksonville, typically what you would say is, oh, they're going to play back, because they're just going to make the Colts dink and dunk, try to get a few minutes to run off the clock, and then things go like that. The Colts, in 4 minutes time, Cody, scored 2 touchdowns in that fourth quarter in 4 minutes, because they got a touchdown from they targeted Alec Pierce 2 or 3 times on that one drive, and that resulted in a touchdown for Trey Sermon. And then you get a 3 and out, and then in one play, Alec Pierce scores a touchdown, and you're back and tied the game within 4 minutes. So I can't even sit there and say, oh, Jacksonville was playing it safe. They weren't. So, like, why is it that all of that happened in the fourth quarter? 24 of your 34 points came in the fourth quarter. So that first drive for Indy, unbelievable. I mean, it couldn't have gone any better for you. And yet, from the second drive of the game until the first play of the fourth quarter, You didn't play complementary football as an offense. And I mean, that not most of that was not on Joe Flacco, but I mean, that's the issue, is that it was almost a little bit too late.
Yeah. And again, like Derek, this isn't a shocker. Jacksonville's so bad at that pass defense. We talked about it in our keys to the game. It's like, man, just go. You can go deep against them. Like, you can do that crap against them. They're terrible. And so that's what's just so concerning, is just like, why did it take that long? Like, okay, fourth quarter, unbelievable offense from the Colts and Alec Pierce, unbelievable couple plays from him. But yeah, why did it take so long for the Colts to go deep and target Alec Pierce? Like, you think if they would have targeted him, he probably would have had over 200 yards in this game. Like, why didn't they do that more? That was just the most frustrating thing, is like, how can you be looking, like you said, the first drive, unbelievable. Then you look like you can't do anything on offense. And then all of a sudden, fourth quarter, you look like you're unstoppable. Like, how does that happen? How do you not score a single touchdown between the second and third quarter? How do you do nothing up until the fourth quarter? That's what's crazy.
And not even still the second. It was the first. They scored a touchdown on the first drive within 4 minutes. Like, that's it. You from the first drive of the first quarter till the first play of the fourth quarter, you didn't score a touchdown. Like, that's such a long aspect of the game.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, your defense near the end looked like absolute crap, but like, they had moments in that, unfortunately, the times when your offense looked like crap, which again, the terribleness of their complementary game, it's just like the defense can look like that and actually make some plays, but then your offense just goes 3 and out, turnover, all that stuff. It's just kind of wild to me how that just continues to happen. And I don't know what the deal is, Derek, but that's, to me, the signs of a bad football team. That's the signs of a bad football team, is like, if you cannot play complementary football, like, that's an issue. That's a problem. We've seen every single game this year, Derek, we've seen the Colts lack complementary football. We've seen it every single game. So the defense looks like crap when the offense looks good, or opposite. It's so annoying and it's so frustrating, because you're like, man, if you guys could just do that at the same time, you could be in a lot of these games, be ahead in a lot of these games, and potentially even put a lot of these games, like even, the last couple weeks, Pittsburgh and Chicago, like, you could have put those games away, like, if you would have played better complementary football. But to me, Derek, that's what separates the fringe, playoff 7, 8, 9 win football teams from the teams that are continual perennial playoff teams, is like the teams that can play complementary football when it matters. And Colts just have not really been able to do that as much as they should be this year. And again, like, this is a team, Derek, that wasn't good. It's not like you're playing this team, that's really considered one of the better teams, in the NFL. This was a team that a lot of people were projecting pick top 5 this year, right? Like, that's where we're at right now with Jacksonville. But again, the Colts they do it to themselves, man. They do it to themselves every single time, and it's so infuriating.
So, I mean, and like I said, we discussed that, and that's all that can be true, and the defense needed to be better. It can also be true. But again, Joe Flacco, outside of Cody, maybe 2 or 3 plays today, Joe Flacco was very, very good today. Yep. I mean, again, the stats speak for themselves. I mean, outside of a couple of the sacks that happened, I mean, Cody, he realistically, I mean, I think there was at least 4 drops by wide receivers today. So again, he could have been 37 of 44 for 400 yards and more. I will say, in fairness to Joe Flacco, in the 2 drives after you scored a touchdown, there were 2 drops by Josh Downs and Michael Pittman that basically stalled the drive. That would have been so much better of a situation for Indy had you actually made those catches. And Joe Flacco put them on the money, and they still dropped it. So again, it just comes down to, we were saying we have to keep on these receivers for the same exact thing that we were saying about Anthony Richardson. Yes, Anthony Richardson was nowhere near as accurate as Joe Flacco has been over the last week and a half, but this wide receiver group is still dropping passes still with Joe Flacco. And it is, a little bit frustrating, but again, it's not the biggest problem. And I really don't even want to be that upset because you scored 34, right? Like
you should
you
win.
should win the game
Yeah.
if you had 34 points. I mean, let's talk about the rest of the offense here. Virtually no run game, Cody. I mean, you did get 100 yards rushing today, or 20 carries for 99 yards, and 1 touchdown from Sermon. I mean, nobody really did anything crazy, but I mean, it wasn't a big part of the game plan today, Cody. Even before Will Fries went down, the Colts came in knowing that they were not going to be able to run the football on this team, and that was apparent with this.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of knew. Like, you're down an offensive lineman with Ryan Kelly. Jonathan Taylor's not in this game. Anthony Richardson obviously not in this game either. Then Will Fries goes out, so it's just like, man, just injuries upon injuries when it comes to this. So, no, not too shocked, although I did like a couple runs. Trey Sermon had a nice 17-yard run. I thought Tyler Goodson, he only got 5 carries in this game. I thought he looked pretty good, averaged 5.2 yards per carry. But yeah, Derek, I mean, between your top 2 running backs, you only had 15 combined carries. So that wasn't the game plan. It was pretty obvious there. So we knew the Colts were going to have to air it out in this game against a very, like we said, vulnerable Jacksonville defense. But Derek, my biggest concern is, why does this offensive line, every single time they go down to Jacksonville, they just revert back to, if you remember, the 22 offensive line. I don't know why they do it, but they do it consistently. It makes no sense to me. Braden Smith goes from shutting TJ Watt down to looking like he can't even block you or me. Like, it's just unbelievable. I don't understand it, Derek. It's
because Trayvon Walker is not better than TJ Watt.
No, I don't.
I don't know. I don't know if it's just because like Steichen had a different game plan and just didn't put as much emphasis on, trying to, as much emphasis on trying to block him. But I mean, like, again, the sack on the one play that I will say, the one play and one play only, really, that Trayvon Walker made, or I guess it's 2, because Josh Allen on the one sack that he had, Trayvon Walker got enough pressure to force Joe Flacco to go up into the pocket where Josh Allen was. But the 2 sacks that Trayvon Walker did have, yes, but it was one of those, the game was over, it was done, whatever. It is what it is. But yes, that one sack where Joe Flacco was trying to throw it deep down the field, held onto the ball too long, didn't feel the pressure coming off the edge, and lost the ball. And then that resulted in Indy ended up losing the ball, and, Jacksonville got the 3-point lead going into halftime. Again, that's just one of those things where we're like, of course, this happens every time. Every time this happens, we never can get away from it. It happens every single game. Something stupid like that happens.
Yeah. And Derek, that ended up being the difference, right? The dumb plays like that, that's the difference. That's the 3 points right there. That if you just even would have taken a knee at that point, it's over. Like, it's halftime and this game's tied. And then you have to go to OT at that point. That's kind of the crazy thing about it, is like, man, like those little plays. And this is why, Derek, I guess I've been so frustrated with this team this year, is because there's just like a couple little plays every single game that cost the Colts these games. Like, the Houston game, that was like every single game the Colts have lost. It's not been like they've gotten blown out, right? So it tells me like they've been competitive in every single game they've lost this year. They were competitive in that Houston game. They were competitive in the Green Bay game, even though it didn't feel like it. They were still, that was a winnable game. And they were competitive in this game. And that's what's so frustrating, is just like you said, like some of the players that should know better are not playing to the level they need to play, Derek. Like EJ Speed completely missing some tackles today, just continues.
Julian Blackmon missing tackles.
Julian Blackmon not looking like he doesn't know where he's going in coverage and missing tackles and just not doing characteristically Julian Blackmon type stuff that we've come, used to the last number of years. Like things like that just make you scratch your head a little bit. Like how does this happen continuously? And people can point to the curse, but Derek, I think it's just a mindset that this team has. It's just like this mental game with this team. Every time they go down to Jacksonville, they just forget how to play good football. Like, it's just kind of crazy to me. I just don't get it.
Yep. I don't get it either. But let's go ahead. I mean, talk about this wide receiver group. Also, shout out to Will Fries. This sucks. I think they said it was a tibia or whatever it is. He's staying in Jacksonville to get treatment. He's going to have a surgery on it, which that sucks. I mean, it sounds like we're not going to see Will Fries for the remainder of the year. And that really, really sucks because Will Fries might have been your best offensive lineman all year, Cody, so far. And, that might potentially be the last time we see Will Fries in a Colts uniform. I hate to say that, but he's going into a contract year. And who knows if Indy's going to keep him around. Odds are probably will because, Indy pays their offensive linemen way too much at times. But, shout out to Will Fries. Hope he's going to be all right. And hopefully he'll come back next year still on this team and looking to continue to do more. But we'll go to the receivers here. Again, Cody, it was a phenomenal day for some of these wide receivers. Again, Alec Pierce, anyone that ever talked smack about Alec Pierce, you need to apologize to this man immediately. Alec Pierce was clearly not utilized in an effective way. Even still at times this year has not been utilized in an effective way. 3 catches on 3 targets for 134 yards and a touchdown. Him and Flacco were single-handedly the reason why the Colts came back in this game in the fourth quarter. Josh Downs, 9 catches for 70 yards. Adonai Mitchell had 4 catches for 40 yards. Mo Alley-Cox, 2 catches for 37 yards and a touchdown. Michael Pittman had 5 catches for 37 yards and a touchdown. Goodson had a couple. Sermon had a couple. Again, all I would say is Michael Pittman, you dropped one early that really could have helped us. Mo Alley-Cox dropped a for sure touchdown. And then Cody, I don't know if you got to watch Adonai Mitchell on some of the reps he had. He was making some business decisions out there. He wasn't fully committing to a couple of catches that he could have made. But he chose not to because he knew he was going to get hit. But he chose not to go after the ball. That's definitely something that's going to need to be addressed by the coaching staff when it comes to him. Because obviously he made a couple catches today. But if he's not willing to make some of these 50-50 balls, then we might start seeing something different happen with his usage. But, I mean, as far as the receivers go, man, it was quite the day for some of these guys.
At this point, Derek, Adonai Mitchell needs to sit his butt on the bench. I'm tired of it. We gave him the benefit of the doubt early, but Derek, if he's gonna make, like you said, those business decisions, screw it. I'll put Ashton Doolin out there. Like, I don't care, man. Like, you need people who are not going to shy away from that. Like, that's just unacceptable. I mean, truly, I think he needs some time. A harsh, I think, lesson in a way. Like, he needs to know, like, you can't do that and expect to be on the field. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care how talented you are. I think Reggie Wayne needs to send a message to Adonai Mitchell, man, because it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable the way that he gives up on routes and the way that he doesn't go to contact, like that kind of stuff that, like, you got to do, man, or else you're not going to see the field. I hate to tell you, but you got to either decide to do it or not. And so far, he's not, man. So, again, who am I to call for somebody's job? But at this point, man, Ashton Doolin, at least we know that he'll do that, And I think that's what you need to do right now. And again, Adonai Mitchell's still young. Hopefully he'll learn from it. Like, I'm not saying give up on Adonai Mitchell. Don't hear me saying that. But
yeah,
if he's not going to contribute and he's not going to do the things that he's asked to do and what's expected of him, he doesn't need to be out on the field right now. He just doesn't. So that's kind of where I am. But yeah, when it comes to the receivers, though, like you mentioned, I thought it was a pretty good day for them. Like you mentioned, Michael Pittman, not a good drop there. No doubt about that. Bad drop for him. But Josh Downs, it's funny, Derek, I was kind of thinking, we were talking about who's going to score a touchdown. And the one guy that we said is likely to score didn't score, but he had the most catches today out of any of them.
Everybody else did.
Most targets and most catches by far. but he didn't have a touchdown, of course. But he still had 9 catches, 69 yards. Josh Downs just continues to be, that volume machine for the Colts. And honestly, I think the cog that keeps a lot of things running on this team on the offensive side of things, passing the ball. You mentioned Alec Pierce. Wish they would have gone to him a little bit more. I mean, the fact, Derek, that he only had 3 targets and had all 3 of them he caught for 134 yards and a touchdown. So he was averaging just about 45 yards per catch in this game, Derek, which is wild.
I think they said he's averaging like 28 yards a catch this season.
So big play there.
I'm not sure if that's still number 1 amongst eligible receivers, but I'm sure it's very close.
Got to be there, man.
He's a big play machine every time he touches it. Every time he touches it, something amazing happens. I don't know why we're so hesitant to give him the ball until it's almost too late. Like, why?
Well, guys, with football season finally getting back into the swing of things, first off, we rejoice. But also, guys, when it comes to PrizePicks, this is going to be a great way for you guys, especially, to check out some of the stuff that PrizePicks has.
You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You heard me right. Only 4 correct picks. You can win 100 times your money, guys, on PrizePicks. Be sure to sign up today and get $50 off instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So, for example, if you think that Michael Pittman Jr. is going to have, over 80 yards this next week, or do you think Jonathan Taylor is going to have another performance of 80-plus yards rushing, you might be sitting pretty good with where you feel like the Colts are right now. Like, for example, I know one of the bets last week, Jonathan Taylor against the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Pittsburgh came in with a really good run defense, and so the over-under was 74.5 rushing yards. And obviously, Jonathan Taylor, if you would have taken the over there, you would have won in that department. And the odds weren't the greatest for Jonathan Taylor because, like I mentioned, that Pittsburgh defense. But to his credit, Jonathan Taylor definitely is a player you can never discount, and definitely a player you definitely want to always essentially take the over on because he's just that good of a football player for the Indianapolis Colts. And so you can do all that on PrizePicks today. Or, for example, with Michael Pittman Jr., when you're talking about him, I mean, he hasn't done a whole lot to start the season for the Indianapolis Colts. But the thing that he did do well when it came, to week number 4 was, he had his first 100-yard game. And if you would have bet that Michael Pittman Jr. potentially did his over, which really wasn't a whole lot in this performance. I mean, really, when you look at it, his over-under was 45.5 receiving yards. And obviously, you smashed the over there. He had 113. So those are just a couple examples of what you can do on PrizePicks today.
So if you're looking specifically for the Colts stuff, that's definitely something you guys should check out. But if you're looking for, like me, more NFL stuff, there's all sorts of stats and stuff that you can check out and make your picks. And there's definitely guys that are very consistent, like Jonathan Taylor against the Houston Texans, that you really feel like you can probably feel pretty good about overall, right? And there's some other ones where you're like, I don't know if I would take the over on that. I don't know if I would pick them to hit that margin, right? So, guys, be sure to go check out all that stuff on PrizePicks. It's only a couple examples. There's all the different odds that you could hope for when it comes to that for PrizePicks. So I highly encourage you guys to go check that out, but definitely excited for this season. And hopefully you guys will be following along with us and everything with PrizePicks and what they do.
So be sure to download the app today. Use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Like I said, guys, it's a great way to continue to stay in with week-to-week life of the NFL, specifically with your favorite team, the Indianapolis Colts. So be sure to do that. Be sure to check out PrizePicks. And remember, PrizePicks, run your game. Yeah, I don't get it either. But Regardless, I thought it was a fairly good day for the wide receivers, especially later in that game. Obviously, Alec Pierce doing what he did and that first drive. So, yeah, man, I thought it was just fine from the wide receivers. I think they were far from the issue today.
Oh yeah, far from it. Now, I mean, let's talk about the obvious issue of this game. I know that Cody's been waiting for a hot 20-something minutes to talk about it. Cody, I mean, listen, clearly this defense is decimated on a lot of different levels. We're missing 4 defensive linemen. We're missing at least 2 corners. So clearly, from that perspective, you're decimated as a group. And not only are those some of those defensive linemen, like most of those guys are starters, and most of those guys are like some of the best at what they do. But today you gave up 37 points to a team that I'm not entirely sure, I mean, again, hadn't scored more than 20 points all year against anyone. And all that with the fact that you gave up 500 yards on offense or on defense today. 500 yards. The quarterback threw for 371 and also, by the way, completed 80% of his passes once again. And then for the rushing, he gave up 126 yards. I know what it took one play, obviously, for Bigsby. He had a 65-yarder, so that was half their yardage right there on one play. But Cody, I mean, the problem I have is like, this is a team that predicates itself on not giving up the big plays, but you're giving up the big plays. Like, this defense isn't good enough to do anything. Like, I compared it on the stream to, like, it's kind of like a college defense where it's like, if you're like Ohio State's defense and your defense is so good on every level, your defensive line, it can get pressure with just 4. It can stop the run with just 5 or 6 guys in the box. Your secondary is so elite that you're not going to get burnt on a lot of routes. Like, you're able to keep everything in front of you, and you're going to say, I am going to make sure you keep a drive going because I feel confident that even if you make it to the red zone, you're not going to push me back enough to where I'm going to fold. That's what it kind of feels like Gus Bradley's defense is. But you don't have the defensive line that's getting pressure on the quarterback. You don't have the secondary that can keep guys from getting behind them. You don't have the defensive scheme that's going to do anything for you. No pressure on Trevor Lawrence. No resistance on the defensive line. No effective blitzing. And even your defense that predicates on staying back got burnt on so many plays today. And I am fed up with it. I'm fed up with it. I don't understand how. I know the defense is bad, but you had to game plan for this because you have to game plan for the injuries that are going to happen. If you know you're going to be down 4 defensive linemen, you have to blitz more often and switch to man. Make it to where it's harder for Trevor Lawrence to sit in the pocket all game long and just pick you apart. Every single game this happens. Every single time.
You took the words right out of my mouth, man. I mean, you couldn't be stupider. If you were looking for a defensive coordinator, you look no further. Gus Bradley's the dumbest defensive coordinator I've ever seen in my life. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, just when I think things can't get possibly any worse, it's like, it's bad, Derek, when I'm predicting what's going to happen and it happens the exact way. I was like, can't wait for Jacksonville to come down and drive. Oh, no, actually, they're not going to just drive. They're just going to score on a 65-yard run. Oh, no, they're not just going to drive. They're going to allow on a 2nd and 20 plus a 60-yard pass because that's what we do. That's what we do. And yeah, I just want to say this defensive line, I know they're banged up, but they should be ashamed of themselves. Ashamed of themselves. They did not even touch Trevor Lawrence. Derek, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me back I think it was 2021. Maybe it was a 2021 game, right, where the Colts need to get into the playoffs, and their defensive line just made, again, business decisions. We're just not going to touch him today. They didn't touch him. I don't even know if they got a quarterback hit today. It was
don't
bad.
know if they did. I don't look. Okay, yeah, no hits. No
That's
QB hits, no sacks today.
That's unbelievable. And I know you're hurting. But again, like you said, like Gus Bradley, like when I say the Colts and complimentary football is the worst combination, a close second is Gus Bradley and in-game adjustments. He has none. I mean, he's the dumbest coach in football. I'm not even kidding. He's the worst defensive coordinator in the NFL by a wide margin. He doesn't change anything. And here we are, Derek, allowing 37 points to one of the worst teams in football. Here we are. Because Gus Bradley is a horrendous coach and doesn't know how to adjust. And this defense, again, every time they play Trevor Lawrence, I don't care if he's having his best season or his worst season. Here we are again. He gets diced up every single time. There's no excuses.
It's just like, are we eventually going to get tired of hearing every time Trevor Lawrence plays against us that it's a new career day for him? Like, how much better can it get? There was only 2 plays today that the defense really actually made, like 3 maybe. Jalen Jones is responsible for 2 of them, and Nick Cross is responsible for 1.
Yep.
Nick Cross intercepts it at the 2-yard line. Then the offense proceeds to give it right back. And then the special teams just ends up giving up the punt that brings them all the way to the 20. And then Bigsby makes 1 run and just runs through everyone. I mean, it's so frustrating because honestly, Cody, and that's the thing too. If you took away Bigsby's 20-yard run for his touchdown, right? And then you took away that 65-yarder that he had, Bigsby only has 11 carries for like 30 yards. I mean, before those 2 runs, Cody, I mean, the Colts defense was amazing at stopping the run. Like, seriously, we were doing exceptional at stopping the run. And it was one of the few things all year that Jacksonville's offense was good at. Was running the football. And we were doing amazing at that. They came into this game averaging 5 yards a carry going into the game. And before Bigsby started going off, they were averaging like 3 yards a carry. We were doing great. But then all of a sudden, it's those 1 or 2 big plays where your team just doesn't play football. I just don't get it. And that big run that Bigsby had in the the 4th quarter when that happened?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He ran through Latu. I understand because Latu is not as fast, is not as twitchy, but he runs through EJ Speed, who makes a terrible angle, and then just runs through Julian Blackmon, who had a trash day. And that's why he ends up with that. And then that other run when Bigsby had in the 3rd quarter, or in the 2nd quarter, when he just ran through our guys and for that 20-yard run off that punt, I mean, that was just abysmal. And I don't understand, man. I really don't. It's like, it's so hard for me to sit back and say, oh, like it's the injuries that are causing this. Like it's hard for me to admit that because like this Colts defense has been bad all year. Like it really has been bad all year. And the thing is they were really good. They were at least solid when it came against the Bears, when it came against the Steelers. The Jaguars offense hasn't been any better than the Steelers has been this year. I mean, the Steelers offense is about the same, but but again, it was a career day for this offense. I can't sit back and say that giving up 500 yards has something to do with your defense being down players. Like, again, it was your best players that weren't making plays. That's my issue with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, if the Colts seriously, and Chris Ballard seriously make the excuse of injuries, then they're dumber than I thought. Like, they are dumber than I thought if they use excuses to say, well, we were down all these players, and so, like, we're going to excuse what happened today. No, I don't care, dude. Like, you are, at the end of the day, a professional defense, right? And you cannot allow one of the worst teams to do that to you. Like, I don't care how many injuries you're down. Like you said, it wasn't like all these backup players, we're the only ones making mistakes. Like, some players that you seriously would say are guys that you view as cornerstones on your defense. Like you talked about, like with the linebackers, with Julian Blackmon, like those guys were not making plays today. They played horrible. So you can't blame those guys. You can't blame the guys that maybe, for the injuries. While they definitely were a factor, it's like, again, I don't care. You can't make that excuse. You just can't. Like, that is no justification for allowing Jacksonville to do what they did to you. I mean, seriously, there's no justification.
There isn't. I mean, again, you should not have to score 34 points and then still lose. I mean, you shouldn't. This was so bad on so many levels by this Colts defense, and I'm not gonna sit there and I don't know. I don't know if it's because, I mean, Cody, maybe they're not buying into Gus Bradley anymore. Maybe they're just not. Maybe Julian Blackmon and all these other guys, maybe they're just not buying into this crap anymore. But like, I was so dumbfounded over the fact that Julian Blackmon looked terrible. Dallas Flowers was horrendous in this game. And the linebackers, again, were missing tackles, especially EJ Speed. EJ Speed was missing tackle after tackle today. I don't know. I don't know if that's just a commitment issue. I don't know if it's just because they're, like you said, maybe it's a mentality issue. I don't know. But like, all I know is this defense has only maybe had one. It hasn't really had a good game all year. You're dead last in yardage you give up with this team. Cody, we're dead last in yards. We're the worst defense in the league in giving up yardage. I don't know if how we are in points. I'm pretty dang close that we're up there. Like, there's nothing good about this defense. Nothing. And I get that the defense has been decimated, but even against the teams you beat, you still were giving up yards after yards after yards. This isn't a team that has a lack of talent issue. This is a team that has a serious scheme issue. This team does not know how to adapt. This team does not know how to play complementary football. And this team doesn't have a coordinator that knows what he's doing. And something has to change. You are right. The Colts need to cut ties, and the Colts need to figure something else out. I don't know what it is. They need to figure something else out, because what is going on right now is not helping anyone.
No. And Derek, I mean, we can't absolve Chris Ballard either. Like, I know, okay, you can't predict injuries, but Derek, really, Dallas Flowers out there, like, and that's what you said. I said you should, I don't think he needs to see the field. You're like, who else do we have? And I'm like, you're right. Who else do we have at this point, right? Like, Jalen Jones is out, or not Jalen, excuse me. Juju Brents is out for the year. We know that. But why haven't the Colts done anything else? Like, I don't understand why Jalen Jones or why Dallas Flowers is out there, Derek, getting burned, and we don't have any other. And also, Derek, why are we so stupid to keep him out there and not put Samuel Womack out there, who just had a really good day against the Chicago Bears and had a really good day against the Pittsburgh Steelers? Like, why? I just don't understand, Derek, like, why some personnel decisions are made the way they are, either in that secondary that's, getting just completely chopped up. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And Chris Ballard plays a part in that too, because, I think that one of his worst qualities, Derek, is he does not react well. Like, he does not react when stuff happens with legitimate depth out there. Like, I know you can't, replicate what Juju Brents had out there. Like, I know that, but like, get somebody else out there that if it continued with Dallas Flowers, you could put him out there. I don't know. I just don't understand it.
Yep. I don't understand it either. For the special teams, again, again, Cody, it just seems like every single time every single time we play Jacksonville, there's one punt return that brings them all the way down into scoring position. Every single time. Every single game we play them, there's one time. One time we have a special teams lapse. And then on top of it, I mean, Cody, I don't know if you're watching Matt Gay's kicks. I know he didn't miss any today. Dude, he was dang close. Even on extra points, he was dang close. Every time. Every time. He couldn't hit it down the middle. I still do not understand why we're keeping him. But our special teams is bad.
Yeah, it's rough. It costs you a little field position or points about every game. So there's a lot of issues with this team, man. I mean,
and just to go back on the defense here again for a second, Jim Aiello posted this. So the Colts defense today surrendered 497 total yards, the most the Jags have had since 2022. So in 2 years, they haven't hit that kind of number. Surrendered 8.7 yards a play, the most for the Jags since 1998. So over 20 years worth of time, more than 25 years. And allowed Trevor Lawrence to set a career high in passing yards today. So again, your defense is trash and something's got to be fixed because this Colts defense is going to be the reason why we lose every game. Really.
Gus Bradley special, man. Gus Bradley special every week. And again, no resistance, going. Jacksonville just drove down and kicked that field goal too. Like we knew they were going to do that because the Colts don't have any resistance.
Sat back. I said it, Cody. Like I even said it before. Before we even tied it up. I was like, I have no faith in this. I have no faith in this. I have none. I have no faith whatsoever that this team is going to figure it out.
Which is saying something 5 weeks into the season. It's saying something right there.
Yeah.
So, Derek, this is kind of my thoughts here. And I know we'll probably talk long picture at some point. I kind of look at it and I say, man, I think you got to blow it up defensively. You got to do a lot of things like on the defense. Like, I don't think almost anybody, I shouldn't say anybody, but there's a lot of players that I don't think should be safe on this defense. Like, I really do think, there's a lot of pieces, but Derek, whether you think it's just purely a scheme issue or an execution issue, I think there's a lot of conversations that need to be had here. Obviously, I think it starts and ends with the new defensive coordinator you're going to have to get. But Derek, I mean, there are some bright spots on this team, but I think there's some overhauls that probably need to be done on this defense. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I think there's some talent, certainly, but I think there's definitely a lot of issues here with this defense. I mean, obviously, we saw what they did today, where I'm like, you start with the coordinator, you start with the scheme, but there may be some players, Derek, that we're not talking about right now that might not be with Indianapolis Colts in the next couple of years. Like if indeed the scheme change does happen and all that stuff. But I just think there's a lot you need to do with this defense, Derek, with kind of a blow up starting with the coordinator and really like running through every single player, because I do think there have been bright spots, but again, Derek, there's a lot of low spots too in this defense. But I will say this, there are some young players in this secondary. I just want to highlight real quick, despite the fact that secondary looked like crap today, I think there are some guys who are bright spots today. I think Jalen Jones and Nick Cross. I think Samuel Womack still, when he's out there, I think he makes plays. He should be, in my opinion, cornerback number 2 moving forward on the outside.
Yep.
So there are young guys that you're like, we have something we can build off of here with this secondary. Like it's not completely devoid of talent. And I mean, Derek, it's crazy to say 5 weeks into the season, the defense is maybe as bad as we thought, or maybe even worse than we thought in certain ways. But also, Derek, the fact that Nick Cross and Jalen Jones are highlights, like they're some of the guys we're pointing to as bright spots, that should tell you something right now.
Yep. It's just, it's terrible. I can go into it for forever, but I will say this, Cody. In that first half, what sucked is outside of the one throw that Brian Thomas had, which was a touchdown because Dallas Flowers got caught lacking. Every pass was either a screen or was a 6-yard out route to Christian Kirk. And yet we never found a way to stop it. We never found a way to get it in the middle. Or it was just a dump pass to Travis Etienne right there in the middle of the field. And you had either Zaire Franklin or EJ Speed trying to tackle him in the middle of the open field. And it resulted in 8 or 9 yards every single time. So again, it came down to the scheme. The scheme was not good. It didn't execute good. Just a lot more things that need to be done. But yeah, that's probably going to do it for this one, guys. Again, we saw it. I mean, this was a pitiful performance, especially by the Colts defense. Offensively, at least you're able to put 34 points on the board. Not like it matters because the Colts ended up losing. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts on this. Thank you so much. And as always, go Colts.